Today I'm going to be talking about the show Virtuous Business. This show inspired me on multiple levels right from the get-go. Like, it had my attention because there's this amazing scene in the pilot episode where there's a cameo guest appearance by our beloved actress Ramiran, who you all know as the Chita Ajumma in Reply 1988, and she's also done a slew of other amazing shows thereafter, the Puamdong Ajummas. So Ramiran makes a cameo guest appearance on this show, and in the pilot episode, like, she gives this iconic, amazing monologue talking about the origins of sex toys and how they came into South Korea and how this is now a major market that has high potential. So she's like giving a pitch to these other fellow moms who are there who want to get a side hustle in order to support themselves. Their husbands are lousy, they're not working, they're not pulling their weight, so these women have to go out and get a job in the year 1992 in this rural area. They're there listening to this pyramid scheme pitch, right? I mean, that's like every mom's side hustle. She's part of a pyramid scheme. I don't think my mom ever participated in that. She was more of a victim of pyramid schemes like that. Like, she would come home with like this product. It's called Atomic, okay? Like, Atomic is the product. They made shampoo. So every time like I would go to friends' houses and I would see these products, I'm like, oh, they're all part of that same fucking pyramid scheme, right? Like, all the Korean ajumas in this area are part of the scheme. Like, I want to know who's the one at the top. Like, which bitch is at the top here? Like, that's what I want to figure out. So it's the same idea. Like, she's making this pitch to these young desperate mothers, and the pitch is lingerie, sex toys. There is a market potential here. I really loved this monologue because Ramiran's character was historicizing the vibrator. And she says, like, this came from years ago when the British physician came up with this thing called a vibrator, and it was used to treat anxiety and hysteria. That's what it says in the Netflix subtitles. However, I did some research because I am an academic and I'm a research scholar. This device, which was created by British physician Joseph Mortimer Granville in the 1880s, it was not invented initially to treat female so-called hysteria. It was initially treated to deal with muscle pain and aches for male patients. That was the primary objective of these vibrators. The American scholar Rachel Maines, she's the one who contended that Dr. Granville's vibrator was later used to treat hysteria among women by bringing them to orgasm. But then later, this argument was reconsidered by another scholar from the UK called Helen King, and then an American sex historian named Hallie Lieberman. They both said this argument by Rachel Maines lacks sufficient evidence, and therefore the belief that Granville is the inventor of the vibrator is actually a myth. So the monologue, although it attempts at historicizing the vibrator, it is actually fake. And that's a very interesting analogy or foreshadowing to how this business ends up by the end of the series. So the premise of the monologue is based on myth, not fact. The monologue, as it continues, then says that sex toys started selling in the United States in the 1960s. So this is also tricky because, well, who's to say that there weren't sex toys prior to the 1960s? I guarantee you there were sex toys prior to the 1960s. Like, whatever anybody decided to use in order to bring themselves to orgasm, that's probably a pre-1960s sex toy, okay? There were catalogs. There were these underground channels, non-commercial methods of selling and obtaining these erotic goods prior to the 1960s. But the reason why the 1960s is brought up in the monologue, I assume it has to do with the sex revolution of the 1960s during the whole like hippie movement, the flower power era, okay? The 1960s, I wouldn't say is when the US started to sell sex toys. It's more when it became a little bit more prominent and a little more commercialized. And then the beginning of the mainstreaming of sex toys began in the 1960s. The monologue then continues on to say that by 1977, San Francisco opened up the very first sex shop in 1977 out in California. It was called Good Vibrations. But this is also incorrect. According to my research, the very first sex shop that opened up in the United States was in 1974, and it was not in California, but it was in New York. It was called Eve's Garden, and it was a feminist sex shop. So that is also an inaccurate display of historicizing sex toys by this K-drama. So what is my point? Do not rely on K-drama history. Like, these are not facts, okay? Anything that is, declared as a fact on television, just go back and do a little research, all right? Because you'll do a little digging around and you'll eventually find out it was not true, all right? The monologue then takes a little weird turn and it becomes a subjective experience according to this character. And it's a fictionalized character. It's a fictionalized show. Ramiran's character claims that by the 1980s, American military men who were occupying Korea at these military bases, one of them, a soldier named James, showed her this room full of lingeries and sex toys and said, you can make big money selling this stuff. Now, that's where reality gets a little wonky, right? It's like, how in the hell am I supposed to buy into that? You're telling me an American army man, an American soldier, a white dude, brought lingeries and dildos and vibrators overseas from the US and then gave it to a local ajumma? Please, give me a break.